I'm afraid to see Alderman Tenz. I think he wants to fight me now.
All right, let's call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on December 5th, 2018. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes. Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Kelly is here. Alderman Loss. Here. Alderman Karen. Here. Alderman Harry Gathright.
Present.
Members not in attendance. Alderman Klee said she would be unable to attend. And our chair, Mayor Donchis, is.
All right, I'm here. Public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the committee? Doesn't appear so. Next, communications. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding change order 1 for 14 Court Street building improvements with a value of $14,562. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize change order number 1 to the contract with Berkeley Construction in the amount of $14,562. Funds are available in Department 183, Economic Development Building Trust Fund.
Now, Mr. Cummings is here, Economic Development Director, in case anybody has questions. Alderwoman Karen.
Oh, thank you. Concerning the emergency equipment, wouldn't they have known some of that because the building is so old? No?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the committee, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development, for the record. You are partially correct in that quote-unquote saying that we should have known, and we did know a lot up front because it is an existing building. But codes change over time, and updates only occur when renovations happen relative to fire code compliance. And in the initial conversation with the fire marshal, we thought we were going to be complying, and then as it turned out, as we got further along in the process, we needed some additional pieces of equipment, which wasn't originally scoped out, but we needed this to achieve our occupancy permit.
Okay, thank you.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Yes, thank you. So I know that we talked a little bit about the Court Street building last night. I wanted to know about the ceiling repair because it was brought up last night. I think it's a good point that if the roof is leaking, does it make sense to be fixing the ceiling before the roof is fixed?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, this particular piece of ceiling actually is not affected by the roof. It is below grade, and there's 2 or 3 floors above it. What this is in particular is actually underneath the former firefighter apparatus bay, and the heavy loads of the truck caused some I don't want to say debris is probably the best way to call it, where it needs to be cleaned up, just repainted and resealed and whatnot. And so that's what this work is for. It has nothing to do with water or anything like that. It's actually cosmetic in nature.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Alderman O'Brien.
Just quickly, being familiar, because we've had familiarity with this. Fire trucks are a transient load that travel across the floor, and, the newer ones, they're 16 tons. You're asking an awful lot. But that's why we do not, in the future, we do not build fire stations over cellars, such as what is the case at Court Street. And because that was an old building, we got to keep in mind that was originally intended to hold horse-drawn apparatus. So as we get now, there was some damage because we kept the building a long time, I think until about 1971. So it is a gem, it's an integral part of the city and uses the art part of arts community. So we need to take care of it. So I support this, thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly, thank you.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding tire changer and high-capacity balancer with a value of $19,367. Mr. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just bringing them up.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize the purchase from Mohawk Resources Limited in the amount of $367. Source of funding is Department 161 Streets, prior year escrow.
Thank you. And we have a guest from Public Works.
John Stewart, DPW Fleet Manager.
Fleet manager over at the barn, so to speak. Anybody have any questions? Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. And not to be too cheap or fiscally conservative, we did purchase one already, didn't we not? Or was it for another division?
Police Department.
It was the police department. Okay, then I stand corrected. Thank you.
That's, we
Thank you.
saw theirs, and that's.
Right, okay, thank you so much.
Any other, Alderman Laws?
So what I read was that the one that you're using is inadequate to change tires that you need to change.
Yes.
And you've been outsourcing by sending the trucks to mechanics, I imagine, outside of DPW.
We take the tires off and bring it down to Main and Bliss here.
Yeah. How often do you do that? I was just curious.
Any smaller, we have roughly 100 rolling stock that we would have to do that too, so it's probably a couple times a week.
Oh, yes.
They're
Mr.
yelling.
Stewart,
You
could you
need to
talk
get
into the
into
mic,
the mic.
please? Yes,
Sorry.
that'd be great.
Probably do it a couple times a week.
A couple times a week?
Yeah, and during the state inspection time, it's way more frequent. Probably-
excellent.
Probably 6 to 8 times a week.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Boucher from our next item is, are you here for the sand? You're not here for the sand. You could be. Yeah, I was thinking we were on to the water treatment plant, but not yet. Sewage treatment plant. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding winter road sand with a value of $16,000. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Northeast Sand and Gravel in the amount of $16,000. Funds are available in Department 161 Streets General Operating Fund.
Questions, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we're on to the wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Boucher is here. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding energy recovery upgrades, construction phase engineering services with a value of $76,762. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and award the contract to Waldron Engineering in the amount of $76,762. Source of funding is Department 169 Wastewater.
Questions, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding energy recovery upgrades construction services with a value of $1,787,373. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and contingent upon Board of Aldermen approval, award the contract to Methuen Construction in the amount of $1,787,373. Funds are available in Department 169 Wastewater.
Mr. Boucher, do you want to take a moment to explain this one? It is a big item.
Sure, thank you. Dave Boucher, Superintendent of Wastewater Facility. This project entails upgrades to an existing building at the wastewater facility. The building currently houses a generator that powers our digester complex. The generator has failed and is beyond repair. So we're receiving 2 new generators, Caterpillar generators. This upgrade would modify the building along with all the piping, the electrical conduits, and the computer system that maintains the generators. It also provides for a mixing skid which blends, I should say the generator runs off of biogas that's produced by the digester complex, which is methane gas. The new generators will run off of both methane and natural gas mix. It's more efficient for the generators. So this whole facility would do that, and the mixing skid is kind of an upgrade also, which blends the 2 gases together in the proper mix.
Alderwoman Karen.
Yes, thank you. I know this is an important facility, but did this just happen, or has this been a time thing, or was this lack of maintenance, or just age? Because, it's almost $2 million, and I know we've spent a lot of money there, and I certainly don't want to see any major things happen, but it's just a question, a little concerning.
The generator was not in operation when I started in January. It's aged because the generator cannot be rebuilt. They don't make parts for it. And then there's new technology now that can make things more efficient. The generator ran off of just methane gas, which probably didn't add to, I guess generators, what I'm told is that they don't run well off of just methane gas. It has to be a blend. So that probably also did it in.
So this will make it even more efficient?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence, if I may, to Mr. Bouchard, since I've been on finance, we've had a lot of this, the digester failed and everything else, and I think in the past, and no blame or anything, but this is what happens when we're too conservative and we let things go too far. But can you just give us an overview? I mean, we are catching up. It's a very important facility, and to follow up what Alderman Karen is saying, how is the health now? Are we getting there? Do we see that we're going to have a top-rated system here very shortly, I hope?
Yeah, this is a system all by itself. The digester complex and this particular building that powers it is separate from the rest of the facility. We just had the digester cleaned, maintained. All the flame arresters on all the tankage has been redone, and pressure relief valves have been redone. We are having work done to the gas. There's a gas holding tank with all this that needs some repair. That's getting done. So this will be back to its original working order after this upgrade.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. I know that you've been doing a lot of upgrades and you're kind of playing catch up, as Alderman O'Brien was saying. I was wondering about sort of the length of a lifetime of a generator. It seems like this facility was just, it says 1999 was just built. So a little under 20 years. Is that typical? What should we expect to get out of this new one?
Generators it depends on how often the generator runs. We have generators at our facility that'll last longer. These generators are intended to run all the time because the digester needs to be heated, so there's constant heating. The boilers will always have to be powered. They'll always have to have power. It also generates all the lighting and all that at this facility. So it's going to run more often than some of the older generators we have at the facility. But we do have a good maintenance program now. We have outside contractors that'll be maintaining this. I can't speak for the past, but it's the typical life of a generator like this is 10 years for this type of complex. I've seen them last a lot longer. With proper maintenance, they will last longer. And that's what we expect to do is maintain it.
Thank you.
Alderman Laws.
This may be a silly question, but why do you need a generator? Why can't you just plug into mainline electricity?
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
More expensive than
and we
$2
do
million.
generate methane gas as a byproduct of the wastewater, so it's free power. It has to be cleaned, and we have part of the facility is a cleaning mechanism of the facility, which is in operation. It works proper. So you clean the methane gas so you can use it in a piece of equipment. And so it would be a shame. Currently, we're just burning it off, and it's kind of a waste. But we look at a kind of a payoff in 5 years with this project, just in savings in electricity and fuel that we'd have to buy for the generator.
But that's the information I was looking for. Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you.
Communication from Dan Kukin, Purchasing Manager, regarding change order number 5, Northeast Earth Mechanics, Inc., with a value of $83,392. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize change order number 5 to the contract with Northeast Earth Mechanics, Inc., in the amount of $83,392. Source of funding is Department 168, Solid Waste Soil Wall Bond.
And I think Ms. Gill is here on this, I believe. No? No, okay. Mr. Kuchen? Anyway, if there are particular questions. Are there questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Alderwoman Kelly.
Communication from Dan Kuchen, Purchasing Manager, regarding 2018 sewer replacement, Harvard Street, change order 2, with a value of $440,037. Mr. Mayor, I move to accept, place on file, and authorize change order number 2 to the contract with Northeast Earth, that's hard, Mechanics, Inc., in the amount of $440,037. Funds are available in Department 169 wastewater sewer rehab bond.
Are you here on this? Yes, okay. This is I guess, an interesting story, so maybe you should come up and tell it. Interesting and sad story in a way. This is Amy Gill from the engineering department.
Senior staff engineer, and I'm representing the engineering department tonight. So it's an interesting story in that, as you're aware, we have many sewers in the city that 330 miles, many of which are old. So in June, we awarded a contract through a bidding process to Northeast Earth Mechanics, and I agree it's a difficult contractor name to state. And they won the bid to replace the sewer on Harvard Street. That was in June. That project was delayed somewhat due to utility work that had to be completed prior to the sewer being constructed. While we were waiting for that project to start, another sewer on Chase Street failed, causing sewer backups to the residents. That was about the end of September. At that time, we had exhausted our sewer rehabilitation funds at that time, and we needed the work at Chase Street to begin. We had a contractor on board already to do Harvard Street that had won them through a bidding process, and we gave them the change order to do the work. To make those funds available, we reduced the work from Harvard Street to put in for Chase Street. Chase Street is under construction now. Now that the funding is available, we're just going to replace those items to Harvard Street so they can complete that work as well at another failing sewer. So unfortunately, the timing of the failure, Chase Street was on this year's sewer rehab project to do, which we're bidding at the end of this month. However, the sewer beat us to the bidding process to get done.
So this, being in Crown Hill, Alderwoman Karen is probably
That
happy
is
to hear about
correct.
this.
That is correct. There's a lot of work on sewers in the Crown Hill area.
Yes, big time.
That whole neighborhood too, the Marshall Street area, Alt Street.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Yeah, Ms. Gill, I completely understand. I used to work at the Arlington Street Station, and I know it's a very ancient system. It's one of the oldest in the city,
That is
if
correct.
I think what it is.
Closest to the
And if we were
rivers.
going to build a modern Nashua, we could not build that type of sewer system, a combination system like that today. But as we replace this and with modern upgrades, which I fully support, I mean, we had a damaged Chase Street, we had to get to that first, and I completely understand that. Are we doing anything to help mitigate the odor or anything when we look at the upgrades? Is there any, like a P-trap system or anything else that we could put in that? As we change them, can we alleviate some of that?
Depending on what we're trying to do at that location. The odors generally come from the catch basins, which are also connected to the combined system. That is one pipe that takes the sanitary waste from the household as well as the runoff into the catch basins. The catch basins in the older systems are shallower, and that's where The odor is allowed to come out of the catch basins without being stopped by any water that typically might be in a catch basin. A lot of that depends on funding. If we were to replace all the catch basins at the time we do the sewers, we'd exhaust our dollars. But in known areas, we do take care of the catch
Okay,
basins
okay.
when we can.
Yeah,
Correct.
and if I may follow
Right.
up, yeah, I completely understand, we
Right.
can't do them all, and
Right.
that's it would be a separate, but it would be nice, and it sounds like we are. The ones we are getting to,
Correct.
we are upgrading them to,
Right.
as best we can.
Best we can, but we.
That's all
some
I think we
provides.
can do, yes.
And the interesting thing, just to point about at Chase Street area and those areas down by Crown Hill, those pipes are the deepest pipes because the system's set up to be a gravity system. As you get closer to the water, the pipes are deeper. So it does cost us more money to replace these sewers. Unfortunately, we try to catch the sewers before they need replacement. We're doing a huge lining project in order to try to capture those pipes when they're conditioned still, that they can be refurbished through the interior by lining those pipes, so it's a lot less expensive. And unfortunately, Chase
Thank
Street
you.
beat us, yeah.
Alderwoman Karen.
I'm just glad we had the money on board in order to take care of Chase Street and Harvard Street. So when is Pennachuck going to finish their project in order for us to do our job?
For Harvard Street?
Yes.
They're scheduled to do it, but it's interesting because since Chase Street failed, and we are a deep sewer, they had to come in ahead of us on Chase Street as well under emergency situation too. So, but we schedule with them all the time,
Okay.
utilities, yeah.
And that's the way to do it. Get them to
Correct.
do theirs before we do our work.
Correct, and you can see most places in the city, a lot of utilities are working together before we all finish a project there. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfinished business, none. New business, none. Record of expenditures. Is there a motion on that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period November 16th, 2018 to November 30th, 2018.
And is there a motion to approve? Yes.
Yeah.
I'll interpret that as a motion to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. General discussion? Anybody have any discussion items?
No, but I believe tonight you have two.
I
Oh, we
noticed
have-
that.
Oh, we have the
Do I need to move for the other one?
Yeah, because.
two things that are not on the agenda, right?
No, he's saying we have two expenditures, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So I will move for the second one. Which one was it? This one? That one I did.
All right, so is there a motion on the second record of expenditures?
I move that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period of November 2nd, 2018 to November 15th, 2018.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any general discussion? We've discussed a couple times the issue of whether we should raise the threshold for the items that we see and approve. There's been a couple of you have asked questions, are we going to go forward with something like that? And there's a little, I'd say, some people think the threshold should be 15,000, others 25. One approach we could use, and I just throw it out there, is most of the items that come through are public works items where the purchases tend to be very large and where they say Public Works Department indicates that they spend many, many person hours preparing each of these items, and that's sort of why they're interested. Because they go before both the Board of Public Works and the Finance Committee. All this paperwork has to be prepared. So one way we could go is to raise the threshold for Public Works without affecting the other departments where the purchases are less frequent. Like right here, this whole agenda is Public Works, right? Except for the first item. And if we did raise it to 25, it would knock a couple of these items off, but we would still be seeing, the major items, because in Public Works, $25,000 is not that big an issue. Not, as their items go, it's not that big an item. Most of their bigger things are 50, 75, $1.7 million, 400,000. So that is an approach we could take. So I just throw that out for your consideration. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we were to follow up on that suggestion, could you please inform us how it would take an ordinance?
Yeah, we'd
to
have
go
to-
before the full board? And if you could explain the procedure, please?
Just like any other ordinance. So what we have now is an ordinance that says that the Finance Committee considers any item up to 10,000. Over 10,000. Ordinance could be proposed to institute a separate or different criteria. We could raise it across the board, or that ordinance could raise it just for Public Works as we see fit. So the procedure would be to propose an ordinance, be introduced before the full board. It would get referred to a committee, maybe this one, depending on what President Wilshire would do, and then with a recommendation would go back to the full board and would have to be voted on by the full board of aldermen and enacted in that fashion.
Thank you. I would be willing to do such because it does seem to expedient some things. If I do have support from my fellow members of the board that could sign on as co-sponsors, I will share the lead and ask you to join me if you so wish. You know what I mean, to act on this.
And the reason we were thinking about Public Works is there's so many Public Works items. In some departments, for example, we did a $14,000 item in Economic Development just now. Now, they don't come through that often. That's not that small for Economic Development, but for Public Works, a $14,000 item is, one of definitely on the small end. So that was the point of thinking about the Public Works approach. But we could do it across the board. I mean, I think the members of the committee, we could decide and recommend to the full board, whatever we think is best. Alderwoman Karen.
A question, did we ask to find out how many other communities, what the threshold was for purchases before they go before their selectmen or board of aldermen? Was it, we weren't sure if it was $15,000 to $25,000. I think that if the majority are at that point, I wouldn't have a problem either, Alderman O'Brien.
Now, Mr. Kuchen has that. I don't know if you've got it with you, but
I don't have it with me. I do have that information, though, and generally, most of them are 25 or higher.
we're very low. We're really on the low end.
Well, I think so.
And we were at one time at, I believe, 15, and it went back to 10 some years ago, 2002, I think.
Could you email that to the members of the committee?
Absolutely.
There's a spreadsheet that shows that.
Okay.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Thank you. I was actually wondering if that spreadsheet also has information on like how many purchases last year were under that threshold or over.
I have that as well.
Great.
Yeah, we've had that, and then we kind of moved on from that. So we'll come back, and Mr. Kuchen will email to everyone those two spreadsheets. All right. If there anything else? Public comment? I don't see any members of the public. Remarks by Alderman? Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, I just have one, and I would really like to thank Mr. Bouchard and Ms. Gill. Their explanation was good, particularly for the public. We have been spending a lot of money in the sewage treatment, and it's good to see that things are coming along a lot better than what they were, and I compliment them on their attentive to their duty, so very good, thank you.
Mr. Boucher, at the public, we're at the superintendent of the wastewater treatment plant has, during his tenure, which is, a year or so, I think done an extremely good job of bringing the facility to analyzing the issues, bringing the facility up to better working order, and he came highly recommended, and I think he has met those expectations. Any other remarks? We don't have a non-public session. Alderman O'Brien.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the meeting is adjourned at about 7:30. Now, we've got someone
Mr.
who's now
Mayor.
imitating Brandon, so there's two of these things here.